Good afternoon and happy Tuesday. Welcome to week 3 of our Federal Conference podcast series, The Art of the Possible. Today, we're speaking with Sharon Sullivan, who's the Vice President of Brand Experience at LeadingAge, on the topic of what challenges are associations facing their meetings today, as well as tomorrow, and how are they managing them. Sharon has 29 years of experience as an event strategist. For the last 25 years, she has worked in the nonprofit association field. At LeadingAge, Sharon is responsible for creating experiences which connect members in ways that accelerate engagement and inspire. She's a national expert on association branding and event-related sponsorships. In her current role, she provides strategy advice to affiliate aging organizations across the country to help them advance their goals through emotionally powerful events to positively impact brands. Prior to LeadingAge, Sharon launched and served as assistant show director for JCK show in Las Vegas. Hi, Sharon, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I think today I'm really excited because as a third-party planning organization, we have a lot of association clients. I'm excited to discuss your perspectives on where we are currently, industry specific related to associations, because I think in this industry, what's going on right now, every market segment in the industry has a unique set of challenges. And I think that it's really important for all of our listeners to hear from each one of you.
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful for you inviting me. And I think these podcasts are such a great idea. So thanks for including us and thanks for holding them.
Yeah, I think it's at that time where people may have a little bit of time right here around lunch. And so we're happy to have our listeners with us today. And are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's get into it. So how is the current atmosphere impacting association partners and how do you engage them?
That's such a good question. I think I've been, like you said in the bio, I've been in the field for a long time. And I think that the unprecedented reality of the situation is that every single facet of our industry very quickly is facing catastrophic losses. Mm-hmm. And we're so accustomed to being, to interacting with our partners in this like win-win scenario. And there's no winners here. And I think that, what we've found as a best practice is if you start every conversation and every email in this place of deep empathy about that, mm-hmm. that both parties here are, going through this catastrophic, event, that when you're empathetic and you stay in that place, you're going to be, you're going to get the best positive outcome for both of you. So right. I would say that's like my number one thing I've been trying to do.
Yeah, I think you're right, because no one's winning, right? I think we're all in this, I know we keep saying this every week, we're all in this together, but it truly is all in the same place together where we're all trying to figure out how to move forward. What are those next steps? But I think we also need to remember when we're having those conversations about where the other person's coming from, where their business is coming from. So if they're having conversations with hotels, if they're having conversations with AV partners, we're all taking such huge losses, and keeping a logical mind is, I think, key to that. So I agree.
It's definitely not business as usual for sure.
No, I don't think there's nothing business usual or normal about this for everyone. So I do think that it's an opportunity for everyone to just keep that in the back of their mind in every conversation that they're having with everyone.
So. Can you and I make a decision to like get rid of the word "a new normal"?
I know.
Get rid of that.
I was actually thinking about that the other day when I was looking. I'm just reading through some different blogs and the new normal, and I don't necessarily know that I don't like the word normal in general, because I don't think that there's such a thing as normal. But I think that everybody's different places that they're coming from whether they're an association or they're a corporation or what kind of event or membership that they have. To me, there is nothing normal. So I just think even regardless of COVID, it's just, I think it all kind of just is always flexible and changing. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
So how would you say, Sharon, that LeadingAge is specifically addressing challenges and providing value to its members during this unprecedented period?
Well, I mean, from an event perspective, and an education perspective, why we're concerned about non-dues revenue as well, like any business or any organization, and we could make decisions based on what is best for LeadingAge as an organization. We sort of have a long history of, we make decisions and we ask ourselves, and anytime we're making a decision, what is in the best interest of our members? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily what's in the best interest of LeadingAge, but what's in the best interest of our members. And when you do that, when you stay really member centric, you're going to make the best decisions for your organization, because you then have your members' trust. And when you have your members' trust, because you're putting them first, you really can accomplish anything, and you're doing the right thing when you do that. And so you will see the positive business perspectives from that, but we're staying super member centric right now.
Yeah, that's key, because I think where you said, I think when your members are really, what they're gaining from associations like yours is guidance and education, right? So they're looking for, they need to take I think associations need to take a strong interest in making sure that those members feel, what are they feeling right now? So you mentioned empathy, from that place of empathy, and I kind of referenced hotels or partners, but really also the empathy towards the membership base, because who knows what each of your members might be going through personally, or what they might be, how this is impacting them, and what they're going to be doing about it going forward. So I think, you've got to really look at your membership, and maybe whether it's surveying them or trying to figure out what your next goal is going to be as an organization. Keeping that in mind is 100% key. I'm right with you.
Yeah. And it's really hard to not, as because associations are businesses, so it's in a way, so it's really hard not to put your mind what's best for our business. But I think there's a long history of successful businesses really staying really centrally focused on
right.
On what's best for your customer, what's best for your member. What that looks like right now for us is one of the, we're looking at our marketing cycle, and when's going to be the right time to start to market our meetings? When are our members going to be ready to look at that and see our marketing message? I think all associations are really struggling with that. Who's going to be the first to start selling conferences again, and so, but we're really looking at what our members' appetite is going to be for that. Or, and when we're looking at all the different scenarios of what we're doing, the finish line is really, I think what's challenging about the situation is the finish line is constantly shifting. So, as planners, we're natural born problem solvers, but I think what is the solution we have this week, 2 weeks from now, looks very different. So we have to stay really agile, right? And really stay focused on our members, and kind of, what solution is going to be the best for the time and the space we're in right now, whether that is having your event with social distancing, or coming up with a virtual event that is a hybrid event, what's going to be in the best interest of your members. And then really looking at, when we're looking at hybrid and we're looking at virtual, we're really thinking, what is it about our events and the reasons that our members attend our events? Mm-hmm. And how can, if we develop a virtual product, how do we bring those reasons and we address those reasons in whatever we create? And that necessarily we may not do it like everybody else. We're going to do something that's very unique. So while we can learn from a lot of organizations, we have to sort of remember, what is that secret sauce of your event?
Yeah.
And how do you bring that to the virtual experience? And then, I think ultimately the most important thing we're trying to do to serve our members is, get the new skills, make sure my team has the new skill sets that they need to have in order to sort of thrive in this disruption. So, if we are talking about, getting a little stronger on the virtual side than we ever have been before, I think we need to have a staff that has those skill sets to be able to deliver those events.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is be flexible. That's really kind of the overwhelming, you said agile, I'm thinking flexible, and that as you shift strategy, but not only that, I think it's really important right now. We did a survey just yesterday on our colleagues about how many people are really looking to move into the virtual events. rather than in person. And it's a lot for this year, but I think it's really, keep in mind, it's that there's a lot of different platforms out there. And so you really need to take a look at which one of them works for what you need to do. So kind of when you were talking about when it comes to what's your membership looking to gain from what you bring to them every year and you're in person, and then how can you make that happen? And there's all different types of platforms that can do different things. But I think to keep in mind is that also there isn't a one size fits all. That you might not, I think that's the same thing when we say, like, look at hotels, right? We look at a venue or we look at a city that we go to. It might not fit every single, you might not be able to check off every single box, but you can at least get the mass majority of them. I think that's to the same thing I think of when I think of a virtual environment and culturally, like, how do you then take all of that engagement piece over into virtual events too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I don't think it's like just a dumping your live event into the virtual. I think it's really recreating a whole different event, like a whole, that really like capitalizes on the opportunity of being virtual. And, I think that we will look back on this and see this as, something that ended up being like an opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And the opportunity of disruption. And maybe it's a way to really enhance the reach of our events, right, and not necessarily I definitely see this as something that's going to enhance our live events, not cannibalize our live events.
Agreed. I do too. I think that's just it's a better frame of mind to have anyways, because there's so much we can't control. And so I think that's how, in my mind, I think what are opportunities in all of it. So,
I mean, the reason people are sort of going crazy in quarantine is because ultimately people need to connect. It's like we're wired that way. We're going to come back to being live. I think that we're all just trying to thrive while we're sort of in this current state. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Speaking to that was actually one of the other questions that was on there is, what about 2021? And I can tell you, people are not looking to make that type of decision, because I think it speaks to what you just said. We're going to want to get back to that, because this is not normal. This is not comfortable for all of us to live in this. So great. So then, in your experience, how have you all created a feeling of comfort for your attendees, for them to be able to then take the next step, do you think, of registering for your events? Because you kind of mentioned the marketing cycle, and which is interesting, because yes, everybody's nervous about who gets to be the first one and how does that go. So what do you think your next steps? Any tips that you might have for our viewers for that?
Well, this kind of seems like a no-brainer, but one of the things that's been very helpful for us is we typically, like most organizations, we have like a cancellation scale of like by date. Mm-hmm. And we really threw that out, and we basically did kind of a Southwest Airlines, like you can cancel at any time, at any place, at any time, like right up to the day of the meeting. And I feel that I see that our members really want to be positive and say, I'm going to be going to this meeting in August. I'm going to be going to this meeting in November. And our exhibitors are the same way. And if you give them at the same time, they have to be good stewards of their organization. So they can't just, they need to be, so I think they would hesitant to register if you didn't have that. But I find that, our events are holding steady, and we're actually having new people register because we have those laid back cancellation policies. So right. That would be my tip is think about this long term. Don't think about it short term. I think that your reaction might be to hold on to the money you have, so don't give it back. But I think you have to I think by having a lax kind of cancellation policy, the money, it'll be more profitable in the long run.
It's kind of the same strategy the airlines are taking, right? It's smart, because you don't want to see mass exodus. You do want, we all want attendees to be, viewing and attending our events. So how do you do that so that you make sure that they don't walk away? They do have to be good stewards. They can't just sign on for things that their bosses are saying, well, we have no idea what 6 months, heck, we don't even know what next week looks like. Let's be real. So how do you do that? Well, you're right. It sounds like a no-brainer, but I think that there's probably a lot of people who do need to hear that they do need to be flexible with that. And that's going to be hard. I think that it's hard to look at the amount of money that they might be spending, even in a virtual event environment, the amount of money that they might be spending to then put the event on and not wanting to lose that revenue. But I think that our thought process on that is going to be very similar to just like with the airlines, like, well, what's the harm of me going ahead and registering now? And I want to be there. I want to learn. I want to do all these things. So I'm going to go ahead and register. And if things don't pan out later, then I will be able to walk away and no harm, no foul. And I think then as an organization, you just have to know, I think for you all, then what's your next step that you would take if there's always a plan B, right? I guess that's the thing. There always has to be a plan B.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which kind of gets into my next question for you is, what suggestions do you have for large programs 18 to 24 months out with that plan B in mind?
I mean, a lot of what I said, I would say, be in a place of empathy, stay member focused, member centric. And I think be positive and embrace the opportunities of this disruption. I think this happened so quick, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're like in this place of shock, but our industry is like incredibly resilient. And we have a long history of like seeing opportunity, right? And seeing opportunity even in challenge. Mm-hmm. And I think the opportunity for associations right now is like take advantage of the pause button a little bit. And what, almost like we're so busy, like going from live event to live event typically, that we usually don't have the opportunity to stop and like take a hard look at our events and almost be forced to look at them differently, which is what this situation is doing for us. Yeah. So I'm trying to see like the opportunity in that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be normally, I'd be so busy doing the live event. I might not have looked at virtual as hard as I'm looking at it now. I might not have been forced to experiment with a hybrid event. We may be forced to experiment with that. And long-term, what is that going to do? Even when we're back doing live events and everyone's coming, are we going to look back on this and say, this was like a great thing because now we're reaching so many more people and bringing member value to people who never could ever afford to attend our events because they live in a rural area or economically they're never going to be able to afford to go to a live event. And now we have a way to connect with them in new, exciting ways. So I would say, seize the opportunity of the pause button a little bit. And that would probably be my number one piece of advice.
I agree. I'm a glass half full rather than half empty. And there's actually a word for what you just described to you is a positive disruptor. So you can be a positive disruptor in the fact that I always challenge all of my clients to take a look at what are you doing now? Don't just do the same thing just because that's how you've done them. This is a really good moment for reflection and also opportunity, right? Like you look at what does next year look like? Even though we have no idea what next year could possibly look like, you might start having an idea regardless of how the pandemic goes. You might start having to look at the opportunity and the virtual event could provide. And I don't necessarily even mean from a hybrid perspective, because that could be very cost prohibitive, but also from opportunities for maybe smaller virtual events where you could kind of give them nuggets of what they would have gotten from your in-person event. And instead, if they do live in a rural environment, like you just mentioned, that could be something they could do. So great ideas, all great ideas. Well, any other comments or tips or things that you think you might want to give those that are joining today?
I think it's, I think we all have to be like a positive force because, right now we were talking when we were talking a little bit about this call about, like our staff and our teams and, everybody's like sort of on a roller coaster of emotion right now. So I think the more that we can be positive forces in our organizations and to our staff, it is just going to serve everybody well. There's just so much like, sort of glass half empty stuff out there. And I think if we can, as an industry, like band together and say, you know, we're going to see the possibilities in this. We're not going to see which is the whole like title of your podcast series. But that would be like, you know, that would be my number one thing to say to people is like, let's be the positive force here.
Yes. I think everybody's gone back to the drawing board and it's a lot of work to go back to the drawing board. But to me, I think it just speaks volumes to it is possible. We are resilient as an industry, and we are going to bounce back from this the same way we bounced back from things before this. And so chin up. What can you do? What can you do for right now? And then you just keep trudging along, right? You just keep making a plan, keep having more goals, keep having more meetings. They might not look exactly the same as they have in the past, but still have them. There's value to everything that you are putting forth in your in-person meeting. So therefore, how can you get all that value still out to your members, right? So
absolutely
awesome. Maybe do you have a few minutes for some Q&A if we can kind of go into that? All right. So let's see. Any questions? Oh, we did have somebody say like, agreed, Nick's the new normal. So yeah, we'll say that. Any questions from anyone? Not yet. Let's check and see. Check over here. No questions at the moment. Well, then that just means I always think that take that as a positive.
That's right.
Give them so much information, right? That's the moment that lets them know we've satisfied all of those needs, right? So absolutely. Great. Well, you know, I think then in this case, thank you so much again, Sharon, for taking the time today. I really appreciate your insight. I'm sure those that are watching agree with me that they appreciate all of it as well. And we will be posting a recording of today's podcast. So for those watching, you can go back, you can watch it again if you want to take notes later on, or you could share it with your colleagues. So thank you again.
Thank you, Carrie.
And next week in episode 4, we're going to be chatting with Kelsey Waite of Star and Christy White of the Nolan Group of Destination 2021. When will we meet again? We've all been wondering when should we shift to a hybrid meeting or continue to hold on-site events. Even more so, we think about the challenge of where we should hold our program, what city, what destination would have enough space or enough rooms, what type of rates does that destination have during your time period, and when would we need to reach out to them. So we're going to be discussing all of that next Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Thank you all and have a great day.